Namanda, 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 Namanda. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Sensei.
Gong Hai Fat Choi. Happy New Year. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but we'd like to begin our service with Nembutsu Chanting. And so I think you're aware of what we do, but we're going to recite Namu, Amida, Butsu. I do it once, and then we do it all together 5 times. Okay? So let's get started. Namu, Amida, Butsu. 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 Namu, Amida, Namu. Okay, were you surprised when I said Happy New Year? Didn't? No? Okay, yeah, because, didn't we do that 3 weeks ago? Right? But it's New Year's again. What's going on? Right? And it's because January 1st is when we normally think, or very many people normally think, right, is New Year's. And it is. But that's the solar calendar. That's New Year's according to the sun and the position to the earth and the stars. Today is, we could think of it as Chinese New Year, but it's also Lunar New Year. It's the New Year according to the moon. Right? So different cultures consider the calendar different. If it's going to be by the sun or by the phases of the moon. So if you look for the moon tonight, you're not going to find it. because it's a new moon. It's the opposite of full moon. Okay, so you can look up there and you'll be like, where is it? And then you remember, aha, it's Lunar New Year, so it's a new moon. Right? Now, different cultures, some cultures do solar calendar as the main calendar, United States, and the other one I can think of is Japan. Right? Japan actually does. They used to do lunar calendar, but over 100 years ago they switched. So ever since the late 1800s, they've been doing solar calendar. Okay, so that's why here at Buddhist Church of Oakland, January 1st is our big New Year's. But, hey, we're right here almost in the middle of Chinatown, right? We received this beautiful bouquet of flowers from one of the residents in our apartment building, right, for Chinese New Year. And I bet we're going to hear fireworks, firecrackers today and for the next week or so, right? So we also like to think about Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year. Some of the countries that do Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year are China, Taiwan, Vietnam, South Korea. Another one is Tibet, but Tibetan New Year is not until February this year. So it's a kind of different calendar, but it is a lunar calendar. So it's kind of confusing, but I think it's kind of cool too, right? So you can realize, some people do New Year's on January 1st. Other people, maybe they like to celebrate New Year's, the Lunar New Year. And the lunar one's always kind of moving around, right? That's why it's not on the same day every year. So speaking of Chinese New Year, it's Chinese astrology. So you know what year it is this year? I'm born year of the dog. But this year is?
Rabbit.
Yeah, year of the rabbit. Oh, I can share that for the people online too. Oh, yep. Which one is it? Which one is it? Is that who sees a rabbit? Raise your hand if you see the rabbit. Yeah, who sees a duck? Oh, wow. Yep. See? Isn't that neat? See, it's year of the rabbit, but this is my good friend, Duck Rabbit. Right? It's Duck Rabbit. Sometimes when you look at it, it looks like a rabbit. Right? But other times when you look at it, or a different person looks at it and they see a duck. Yeah, they see a duck. Some people, they just see a duck. Other people see a rabbit, right? And so I think it's kind of neat, right? And you can't say this is a rabbit only, right? You can't say this is only a duck. It's duck rabbit, right? You can see it either way, okay? So I think there's a Buddhist message here. Even though, in Buddhism, solar calendar, lunar calendar, either one is fine. But we like to realize, some people do things differently, right? Some people, there's different traditions. Different religions have different, ideas about which calendar to use, right? And actually, you know what I heard? In some parts of Vietnam, it's Year of the Cat. Yes! I never knew that, but like even some cultures, they do, they have slightly different, even if they're doing kind of Chinese astrology, they still do kind of different animals. But one of the neat things about the rabbit, and you're going to hear about this later, have you ever heard of the rabbit in the moon? Right? So sometimes, some cultures, they see a man in the moon, they see a face. But other ones see a rabbit.
Or animals.
Right? Different animals, right? You can see different things. So in the, I think, Asian tradition, and it goes all the way back to stories about Buddha that you'll hear later, right, is the idea of the rabbit in the moon. So it's kind of a special year with the rabbit, although for me, it's always going to be year of the duck rabbit. Okay, so that's just me though. You realize that it's year of the rabbit, and so why don't we conclude? So nice to see everybody. I'm so glad it's not raining. Have fun, Dharma school, when you go to your classes, and we'll talk to the adults in just a little bit. So why don't we conclude Dharma school with Gassho as we recite the Nembutsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida. So I want to let you know in February I want to start chanting something. We've just been doing Nembutsu chanting, but next month let's start trying one of the chants, and it's called Gassho to Amida. Okay, so we'll be learning that next month. It's not hard, and it's kind of fun. Okay, so Dharma school students, you're excused to your classes. Thank you, thank you. Duck rabbit. Okay, welcome back. Let's begin our Dharma family portion. And so let's chant Juseige, which is on page 23 in the small purple book. Namandam, namandam, namandam. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu. Okay, next let's recite the three treasures, which is on page 3 in the small purple book. The three treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life, now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Buddha Dharma, now we hear it. If we do not deliver ourselves in the present life, no hope is there that we shall be freed from suffering and sorrow in the ocean of birth and death. Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in Buddha. May we all together absorb into ourselves the principle of your way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves your supreme will. I take refuge in Dharma. May we all together be submerged in the depth of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in Sangha. May we all together become units in true accord, in your life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through myriad ages of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Tathagata's teaching. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu. Okay. Well, thank you once again, everyone. Why don't I share? This is my drawing. What do you think? Okay? You see the bunny? You see the duck? I thought the other one was better, so I used the other one. But this is my own artistic rendition. This is like the 10th time I tried to draw it. It was not easy. So, I love Duck Rabbit. I think it's just so interesting. And so I went down the rabbit hole last night. See what I did there? And looked online, just trying to find, I looked up stuff about Lunar New Year. I looked up stuff about the Duck Rabbit picture and really learned a lot. Realized how much I don't know. But it was neat, I thought, to read about different cultures' use of these different calendars. And I looked up Julian calendar. Have you heard of that? That's one of the solar calendars that Julius Caesar is said to have made, right? And it was adopted in Rome in 45 AD. So that idea goes way back of using the sun instead of using the moon, right, to mark time. So I thought, do we use the Julian calendar? But nope, we use the Gregorian calendar. Right, and that was done by a Pope Gregory in like 1465 or something like that, right? So at some point, 1,500 years after the Julian calendar was in long use, they realized it wasn't quite accurate. They were either losing or gaining a day. Like every 128 years or something, you end up with an extra day. They had leap year, but like too many leap years or something. So even though we had leap year in 2000, 1900 was not a leap year. And like 1800 was not a leap year, because if it's a 0 one, it's not unless it's divisible by 4 or something like that. There's all this, astronomical mathematics involved with the whole thing. So just kind of interesting to realize, wow, okay, so here we are using this Gregorian calendar, solar calendar, right? And yet, I think in Asia, certainly the lunar calendar was the one used for a long time. And so before like 1860 something, 1870 something, Japan was also lunar calendar. So that's one of the difficulties when you look at like Shinran's letters. It'll have a date, and it'll be like 5th day of the 7th month in the year of the water boar or something. Like what? And so in order to know what that is, you have to be able to look at these lunar calendars, and also emperors, right? So Japan also did stuff by emperor. Right, so trying to figure out what date is that, right, is not easy, and so they'll often put in parentheses 1249 or whatever, right, so that we can know by the Julian and Gregorian calendar, starting with 0 and Christ's birth, right, and you realize, so this whole counting system is very European-centric, right? And Christian-centric, because it's based on Jesus Christ's birth. So like, for example, Vesak, when they do, Southeast Asian countries do Shakyamuni's birth, and it's Vesak, 2,800 or something. And because we're not doing counting by Jesus Christ, that has irrelevant, no connection, right? We're doing by Shakyamuni's nirvana, right? Or other cultures counting based on, other milestones, right? In Japan, for example, like emperors, right? So we're already up to 5 or 6 or 7 like that. I couldn't believe it. It was like, isn't that like 2 years ago or something? But the Heisei, right, for the previous emperor, and Showa for the previous one, Taisho, Meiji, right? Those are counting the years by emperors. So it's kind of neat. I think it is nice to have kind of a consistent one that we can all use. But when you realize the one that we all use is based on Jesus Christ, right? And you realize, that's just like something that maybe we take for granted, but then realize, whoa, but that's based in religion, right? It's a kind of counting based on a specific religious tradition that maybe not everyone shares, right? So I like realizing that. I do appreciate it. And so in academia, I learned instead of saying BC and AD, they use BCE and CE. CE meaning the common era, right? This era that, okay, fine, 0 is then, right? And we can all use it, but we'll call it the common era rather than Anno Domini, right? The year of our Lord, right? And so we use the same numbers, but we can say before the common era and the common era. Sometimes we have to make compromises and know when are we, even Hanamatsuri, right? The Hanamatsuri is April 8th, but that's solar calendar. Vesak is on a different date because it's lunar calendar. So Vesak moves around. So even trying to find, let's all do a Buddhist one. It's like, which calendar are you going to use? Which country are you going to use? Which version of Buddhism are you going to use? Right? It's really interesting to me and complex, kind of difficult. So we can have, this is 2023. I'm okay with that, right? But also nice to know it's Year of the Rabbit. But in Japan, did Year of the Rabbit start on January 1st or today? That's kind of confusing too. So people born in January, is your year by a Chinese astrology? Are you figuring it by solar calendar or by lunar calendar? So someone who, might think if they're born January 5th this year, are they Year of the Rabbit or are they last year's animal? Right? Confusing, huh? But just something to keep in mind. Also, I think it's water rabbit this year. So it's not only the animal, but in Chinese astrology, it's also the element. So wood, right? Fire, air, water, or earth. Wait, that's 5. Aren't there 4? Depends which system you're using. Western astrology, 4 elements. Chinese astrology, 5. So you have to know that is there too. So I'm really happy because I'm a metal dog, right? Mine is king. Metal is with the other one. Anyway. So then, thinking about the astrology and thinking about the rabbit and wondering, where does that come from? Right? Why? And is it related to the rabbit in the moon? Right? I didn't hear about rabbit in the moon until I was much older. But in Japan, it's a rabbit in the moon. Right? I think in the West, it's a man in the moon. And it's like his face. And even that early science fiction film, it's a silent movie, but there's a scene when the rocket goes to the moon and you see the moon's face and it's like, flat, the rocket goes into the man in the moon's eye, right? And so it's like, but just this kind of tradition of it's a man in the moon. But in Japan, not only is it a rabbit in the moon, but it's a rabbit making mochi, right? He's pounding mochi, right? And so it's kind of like, wow, is that a Japanese thing? Or is that an Asian thing? Is that bigger? Right? So I dug around a little bit and found out, it is. And it's got a direct connection to Buddhism, actually. The rabbit in the moon. So this is the story that the kids are going to hear it. I was like, I don't know if I should tell this story to the kids, but they're going to hear it, so it's good. Sensei Joemi's going to tell them the story. But there's a story that the god Chakra, or Indra, one of the Indian gods, he hears that apparently his throne gets hot when someone's going to do something virtuous. Right? And so his throne gets hot. He's like, what's going on? And he finds out there's these 4 animal friends: an otter, a jackal, a monkey, and a rabbit. And they're all good at practicing Buddhism. They're all really into Buddhism. And they want to do the 6 paramitas, and they want to, do all these things. So they realize, oh, what we should do is when a beggar comes, we want to give him food, right? And this giving, this dana, is such a virtuous thing. So let's all do it. Okay, what are you going to do? So they go running off, and the otter finds some fish. The jackal finds a lizard and puts it on a stick. The monkey picks fruits. And the rabbit thinks, all I can do is gather some grass. But humans don't eat grass. So I'll give him my meat. I'll sacrifice myself and give him my body so that this person can eat. Right? So Chakra thinks, that's pretty high level. I don't know. I'm going to test these people. So he manifests as a beggar, or even as a mendicant, one of those kind of wandering religious practitioners who survive by begging. And he goes up to the otter, and the otter says, oh, I'm so glad you came. Here's some fish I got for you. Right? And then he goes to the jackal, and the jackal says, oh, so glad you came. Here's the lizard on a stick. I don't know what the significance of the lizard on the stick is, but that's what he gives. The monkey gives some water and some fruits. And the rabbit, he goes to the rabbit, and the rabbit says, I have no food. I couldn't gather any food for you, so make a fire. Right? And so the beggar, the Chakra makes a fire, right? And the rabbit jumps into it, sacrificing himself, the ultimate sacrifice. But he jumps in, and it's cold. And he's like, why is the fire cold? What's going on? And Chakra manifests his true form and says, ha ha ha, I was just testing you. I'm not really a mendicant. I am Chakra. And you are so virtuous. I want people to know about you for this entire eon of time. And so I'm going to put your image in the moon. And so that's why the rabbit is in the moon, because the rabbit was so virtuous. So this is known as, supposedly, Shakyamuni tells this tale. And here's another thing that I think is neat. He says, I was that rabbit in a previous life. So this whole idea of Shakyamuni in his previous lives, that's what the Jataka tales are. They're these stories of Buddha's previous lives. And so he was a bodhisattva. Right? He was someone aiming for Buddhahood. And life after life after life, dedicating himself to the paramitas, the perfections, right? Dedicating himself to virtuous acts. Right? So we have all these different stories. I found another one about a deer. There's these different stories. And so the interesting thing is, he says, I was that rabbit. And Ananda was the otter. So Ananda is Shakyamuni's cousin, who is always by his side. He's the last one to attain awakening, but his memory is exemplary. So he's the one who listened to Buddha's sermons and then repeats them. That's why we say, thus have I heard. At one time, Shakyamuni was dwelling in, etc., etc. All the sutras start that way. So if we know Amida Kyo, Nyoze Gamon Ichiji Butsuzai, Nyoze Gamon, thus have I heard. That's Ananda speaking. It's Ananda's voice that these sutras, our sacred texts, are told in. And so Ananda is the otter. The jackal, Moggallana, or Mokuren. And if you've heard that name, that's Obon story, right? So, or Maudgalyayana. That's Buddha's disciple who's most powerful in magic. Right? And so he's the one who, he tries to find his mother after she passes away, and he's looking in heaven and can't find her, and finds out that she's actually gone to hell. Right? So he has these mystical abilities to go flying around and looking in the various realms. So he's the jackal. And then the monkey, Shariputra. So there's another Amida Kyo connection. Shari ho maka moken nen maka kasho maka kasen. And during Amida Kyo, we say Shari ho a lot, or Shari hotsu. So that is Shariputra, another one of the disciples. Right? So I thought it was really interesting that all three of the disciples, those are the monastic followers of Buddha, right? His most powerful, our most skilled companions. They're good friends in the story. The stories keep saying that the otter, the jackal, the monkey, and the rabbit are friends. And they're Dharma friends, right? They're practicing the Dharma together. Right? But I thought it was really neat that all three, because there's other disciples that we don't hear about in Jodo Shinshu. Maybe other schools they talk about more, but the three have direct connection to us, right? Ananda, who we hear every time we do Juseige, Sambutsuge, Amida Kyo, that's Ananda's voice. That's Ananda having remembered it, memorized it, so that we can recite it, right? And then Moggallana, or Mokuren, or Mahamadgalyayana, right? Whichever one. Moggallana maybe is the one that we often use, right? So Moggallana is the jackal, and then Shariputra, Shari Hotsu, is the monkey. And then, of course, the rabbit is a previous birth of Shakyamuni Buddha. So I had no idea that this story was so directly to Buddhism, right? And it spreads throughout Asia. So that if you look up on websites, why is the rabbit in the moon? If it's a Japanese website, it'll tell you the Japanese version of the story, which apparently is a fox, a monkey, and a rabbit. So the characters change a little bit over time, right? And you find out, oh, okay, it's a little bit different, but it's still basically the same story. I'm not sure why he's pounding mochi. That might be, because it'll say, the story seems to have been Japanified. But it turns out the version they're watching at Dharma school is the Korean version. And the Korean version is also a fox, a rabbit, and or fox, monkey, and rabbit. I don't know if the Korean version is pounding mochi or not. Is mochi a Japanese thing, or do we find that in other parts of Asia too? Right? So it's kind of neat. To me, it's important to realize, wow, we have Japanese traditions, we have Jodo Shinshu traditions, but we also share Asian traditions. Right? And so to learn about the similarities and differences, I think, between the Asian countries is another layer of complexity, and I apologize for adding all these things in, but isn't that America? America is wonderful because of the diversity, right? And I love that we can be here in America, in Oakland, and do Chinese New Year, but it's American New Year too for many people, right? It's New Year. That's maybe the problem with calling it Chinese New Year. Right, is it makes it seem foreign. When we say Chinese, do we mean the country, our looming enemy, right? Or is it a culture that exists in many different ways in many parts of the world, right? So that we can understand too. No, Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, that's an American thing too. So it's fun, and especially Bay Area, right? Won't like KTVU or somebody will have maybe all the news stations will have Chinese New Year's parade coverage, right? But it's American, right? But then to also realize these differences too between Japan, China, Korea, Vietnam, right? And those are important too. I don't want to be too much, this is the Buddhist way. It's like, well, that's the Japanese Buddhist way of, and I think that that's really important. Hawaii, I think that, isn't there something about Hanamatsuri being a holiday or something? And I don't know if that's like a actual statewide thing or if it's just an idea. But to do it on April 8th is kind of problematic because that's only for Japanese Buddhists. It's not for Chinese Buddhists. It's not for Tibetan Buddhists, right? That they may celebrate this on a different day, right? So having this awareness, I think, is really, really important. The rabbit and the duck. Can I share the picture again? Which one do you like better? Who likes this one better? Who likes this one better? I've really liked Rabbit Duck for a long time. He's my friend and my hero. But it's to me, that's wonderful because I've been writing a lot about perception in my articles, right, and talking, the one water and four views, right, that we see water and you think it's water, right, but it's a house for the fish, It's something to drink for me, right? It's for a scientist, it's H2O. There's these different ways to see the same thing. The clapping of hands, the Sarasawa pond, right? That at this temple in Japan, someone claps their hands. There's a pond where the people that has this beautiful view, right? And so the birds fly away in fright. The koi come expecting food, and the serving person thinks, oh, I gotta go get tea. Someone needs tea. Sarasawa pond. Right? And so this one event, this one action, perceived differently by different people, or different actors in this case, right? Same with duck rabbit. I really liked when it was like, you're the rabbit, yeah. People are like, oh, and then a few people are like, that looks like a duck. I was like, yes. I was so happy in a way, right? Because, which one do you see? Turns out the earliest version of the duck rabbit is late 1800s in Germany. And a picture appeared, so this is Wikipedia. This is Wikipedia knowledge, it's not real knowledge, right? But I think it's probably not too far off. The earliest example we have is from a magazine in Germany, late 1800s. And then it gets taken up, and apparently it gets used as a deep philosophical issue. For example, Ludwig Wittgenstein. So this kind of famous philosopher, linguistic philosopher, I think, thinking about perception, right? Thinking about how do we see things? What happens when we see something? So duck rabbit is perfect because it's so simple, right? It's such a simple thing where, some people apparently see a duck and they can't see the rabbit. But maybe once you finally see the rabbit, then can you go back and forth? Right? Can you see it as both a duck and a rabbit? Can you remove yourself so you no longer see the complete image and see the lines? Right? How do we see things? We just see, we don't even think about it. We just look and react. That's samsaric way. Right? That if we just look unquestioningly, don't question my perception, just attaching to my perception, acting on my perception, maybe, right? Then that's going to lead us to suffering. That's why we just get stuck in these kind of reflex reactions, right? Not questioning my perception. Whereas I think Buddhism asks us, it's not that you're wrong when you see a duck, but don't attach to it. And maybe question your perception, right? And be able to say, maybe there's another way to look at this, right? And when you meet someone, I see a rabbit, you see a duck, you're wrong, you're stupid. Right? No, we don't have to get in a fight because I can only see it one way and you see it the wrong way. Right? To realize, oh wow, maybe there are these different perceptions. Now I don't feel like, I personally don't think we have to dissolve into meaninglessness. Right? Sometimes some people who are kind of anti-diversity, anti-pluralism will say, well, if you allow multiple viewpoints and you allow multiple ways to think about things, we're going to devolve into chaos. That's not going to work. Then nothing will have meaning. Then everything is going to be relative, right? The postmodern thing is just, it's scary. How can we possibly have multiple viewpoints? No, we need one. And our government will enforce one. And it's this one religion. That's terrifying to me, right? Because I really feel, I think it's so wonderful it was frustrating at first. Oh my gosh, which countries do lunar, which ones do solar? Oh no, Tibet does a different one, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, I was kind of like, this is cool. I didn't know that, right? I didn't know that about Tibetan New Year's, right? I didn't know what other countries do Chinese New Year. And apparently South Korea, China, they do both the January 1st and the lunar, right? So all these different possibilities, right? And why can't we appreciate that, right? Of course, I have my own, right? I have my own way I was brought up. I have my own, ways of looking at things. But to be able to consider other viewpoints, I think is important for moving forwards in our world. Right? And I feel like it's supported by Buddhism, right? And that acknowledgement that I see things a certain way because of who I am, because of my experiences, because of my karma, right? Because of my genetics, maybe, right? All these different factors play into how I perceive things. And maybe there's a different way to look at it. One of the things I thought was interesting, one of the studies they did is apparently when they showed this picture to children around Easter, they were much more likely to see a rabbit. And it's like, okay, that's interesting, but is that it? How about if you show it on Chinese New Year in the year of the rabbit? Why is it an Easter thing, right? Why is it connected to Christianity? Well, the study was done in Europe. Okay, I get it, but let's acknowledge that too and realize that there's also a kind of a cultural viewpoint that's happening there. That's not an absolute, right? And maybe at the time the study was done, they weren't thinking so much about multiculturalism and this, acknowledgement of different cultures. But I just thought it was really interesting how it was portrayed so unproblematically in what I was reading that, oh yes, of course, Easter, it's going to be a rabbit. Well, what the heck is Easter? Right? It's tied into of several traditions, right? Christianity with the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, but also the spring festival of the equinox, right? And the coming of spring. And wait, that's where the rabbit comes from. The rabbit doesn't have anything to do with Jesus, as far as I know, except for this idea of rebirth, right? And the connection with spring and the seasons, right? And I think that ancient cultures were much more tied into the seasons, right? Much more tied into nature, right? That's why we do a festival around springtime, right? The spring festival, this notion of rebirth, coming out of winter. We feel it here. It's so much earlier here in the Bay Area, right? Some places might be buried in snow, and here the flowers are blooming, right? But that idea of rebirth as spring comes, right? And that gets tied into Jesus, actually, and Jesus' rebirth, right? After having been crucified, right? But which came first, right? And why was that done? And even just acknowledging that, even Christmas, right? And Christmas, is it Jesus' birth or is it Santa Claus, right? And even realizing, or is it Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? For me, the only Christmas picture I put on Facebook for this year was Colonel Sanders with his Santa Claus outfit, because in Japan, apparently many people eat KFC on Christmas. It's an ancient tradition, at least back to the 70s. So, right? And brilliant marketing, whoever did that, I hope they got a raise, but, all these different stories and different traditions, local traditions, even in the United States, right? That we have, especially in the United States in some ways, but even like dominant culture of the United States has different regional things. Some of them are ethnic, right? Some of them are maybe because of, just the area that they're in. I grew up eating American chop suey. Who's heard of that? One, two, you might have heard it from me. Apparently, it's an East Coast thing, maybe even Northeast. And if you're out here, you're like, no, chop suey is a Chinese thing, right? And it's like, well, that's why it's called American chop suey. I don't know when it started, but I grew up eating it. My mom must have found the recipe in the magazines in the 70s when I grew up, right? So I have this fond memory of American chop suey and then forgot about it. And then I saw it on diners, drive-ins, and dives, right? And Guy Fieri is like, American chop suey, what's that? He's from out here. He's from San Francisco Bay Area, so of course he didn't grow up hearing about it, right? But then even a food show can show these different regional ways, and they'll talk about what Manhattan clam chowder and New England clam chowder, right? You do things differently in different areas. We have these different traditions. Why do we need to flatten that out and just have one, Starbucks and McDonald's? Right? I think these local traditions, whether they're food, calendar keeping, religion, right? Culture, right? These multiple traditions, I feel like is a wonderful thing. And so I just felt like this Chinese New Year, Year of the Rabbit, for me was kind of an opportunity to think these things through. Right? So I hope you all have a wonderful Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, Happy Year of the Rabbit, and really happy to see you all today on this nice sunny day. Happy to see all the kids in Dharma school. And like I said, next month we're going to be doing, what I want to do at Dharma school is start Sutra chanting a little bit and doing Kansho to Amida, which was written by Bishop Tsuji decades ago. And then in March we're going to have a special, we're doing Shinran Shonin 850th anniversary of his birth. That's in May, is the big one in Japan, where BCA members are going, but we're going to do a Bay District one at Palo Alto Temple in March, so you'll hear more about that. But I want to get people used to the Junidai chanting, because I will be doing Shoshinge with Junidai melody. Okay, so why don't we conclude with Kansho. In this year of the rabbit, or for me, year of the duck rabbit, let us consider these different traditions, these different viewpoints, being open to them all. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu. Namu. Did we choose a Gatha? Okay, we're going to do Gatha Namu Amida Butsu, which is on page 67 in the small purple book. We don't have the lyrics online, but actually I think many people might be kind of familiar with it. When life is fair and sunlight gilds the day, when fortune smiles and flowers adorn our way, oft let us pause with grateful hearts to say, Namu Amida Butsu. Even though our way leads beneath the darkened sky, and to our loved ones pain and death draw nigh, our tears may flow, yet trustingly we cry, Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida. I guess that brings another question. Is it Namu or Namo? Right? I would do Namo, but the book said Namu. That's another Dharma talk. Okay, so let's get ready for announcements. Give me a second to set it up, and we'll have announcements from Robert Noguchi. Kudasai. Okay, speaker is external headphones. There we go. Onegaishimasu, Robert.
Hey. Oh, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, and welcome to the Buddhist Church of Oakland. I have a couple things. First, I want to thank Reverend Bridge for his officiating the service and his Dharma talk today. I also want to thank Steve Terasaki for playing the organ, and the host non-group, which is chaired by Norman Yoshida, for providing hospitality for those who attended service at the church today, and the Zoom crew who take care of the broadcasts, the Zoom and YouTube broadcasts. So thank you all very much for your participation in today's service. Going to the website, the BuddhistChurchofOakland.org website, and one of the first things I wanted to mention was that the BCO Long-Term Planning Committee is serving the broader BCO community, for their input on the future of BCO. So if you go to the BCO website, you can see the very first thing you see is help shape the future of BCO, and you click on the survey button. If you haven't taken it yet, I have, so it came up saying you've already taken this survey, but it's very fast. It took less than 6 minutes basically to take the survey, so it's very quick. You could do it before the 49er game this afternoon. So please go ahead and do that. We'd like to have the surveys done this week, actually, And for those of you who don't have email or access to a computer, there are um, paper copies that are being sent out by the church office this week. And so you should receive one in the mail. You can go ahead and return it. We'd like them to be returned by next Tuesday, the 31st. If you can do the online survey, obviously that's going to be done right away. And we'd like that done by Friday, the 27th. So thank you all very much for your participation in that. Going on to another item, the annual Juseige crab feed will be happening on Sunday, February 26th, 2023 at the El Cerrito Community Center on Mosier Lane in El Cerrito. That'll be happening actually there's two seatings, 4 to 5:30 and 5:30 to 7 p.m. or to pick up from 4 to 6 p.m. So for those of you involved in this before, you know kind of what the event is. It's really a fun event and get to see a lot of folks that maybe you haven't seen for a while, but the menu will include fresh Dungeness crab along with Asian salad, garlic noodles, bread, and dessert. The dinner tickets are $55 a person, $20 for children 12 and under. You can get the information off our website, which will take you to the Juseige website. So thank you very much for your participation there. Going to the Buddhist Churches of America, BCA website, BuddhistChurchesOfAmerica.org. There's a couple of events. If you scroll down, first one that's happening this coming weekend, January 28th, Hope from Shinran's Perspective, in-person and virtual event with Professor Jessica Main and Reverend Yasushi Kigoshi. It's the Southern District Center for Buddhist Education and Institute of Buddhist Studies Winter Pacific Seminar. It's January 28th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the LA Hongponganji. Of course, so it's a virtual event, so you don't have to go all the way to LA for this. So go ahead and sign up and register on the BCA website. Also, there's a Temple Leaders Workshop that'll be happening the weekend of February 3rd and 4th next month at the Jodo Shinshu Center in Berkeley. If you think about or would like to go, please work with our president, Norman Yoshida, or our incoming president, Keiju Terada, on who's going to go and represent the Oakland Temple. The last item I have is the benefits of a life of gratitude, benefits of Shin Buddhism, part 1, which is going to be on Saturday, March 11th, 2023 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific time with guest speaker, Reverend Dr. Kenji Akahoshi, and being moderated by our Bishop, Reverend Marvin Harada. So those 3 items are right here on the BCA website if you'd like to take a look at that. Another announcement that I have is regarding the BCA Endowment Foundation and regarding the Dharma Forward campaign. And they offer a deep appreciation for those from the BCO Sangha who have supported the Dharma Forward campaign, and particularly to those who made donations in response to the year-end letter that came out last month. The Dharma Forward campaign has now received over $6.6 million, which is 44% of the goal of $15 million. In the past month, $66.5 thousand was received for BCA initiatives, $102,000 for the Institute of Buddhist Studies, and $80.3 thousand for Dharma Forward General, which is split between the Buddhist Churches of America and the Institute of Buddhist Studies. So there's information about that on the BCA website under Dharma Forward. Also, 200 plus tickets of BCO for 2023 and 2024 are on sale now from any BCO board member. And if you don't know who the board members are, you can ask Reverend Bridge or like I said, our current president, Norman Yoshida, or incoming president, Keiju Terada. Each ticket is $100 and offers the holder to participate in 11 monthly drawings of $100, $200, and $300 in awards, and a final drawing of $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a year from now in 2024. So information on that is available from our board members or the church office. And if you look at our donation page here, you see a number of different ways you could donate. Donations are not required, but appreciated and accepted. And we thank you with much gratitude for your support of the Buddhist Church of Oakland. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day. Go Niners, and I'll send it to Sensei.
Thank you very much, Robert. This will conclude our Dharma family service. Why do we conclude with Kansho? Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu. Namu. Perfect timing. Okay, thanks. Bye, everybody online.